Hi everyone. So I recorded that video, the previous one, the Adamu's release on the coronavirus. I recorded that yesterday, and this morning I woke up, day one of quarantine here in South Africa. We're on full lockdown. I woke up this morning, and Adamu was right there in my mind, and he was saying to me that we need to do a follow-up video, even before the previous one has gone out. So that was new for me. So, all right, sure, let's do a follow-up video with Adamu. So if you give me just a moment, I'm going to tune into Adamu and let him share with you what exactly it is that he has on his mind. Thank you to my young friend Zingdad. I am, of course, Adamu, of the monadic entity of the Pleiadian civilization. The previous video that went out conveyed some very important information, conveyed a perspective that really needed to be placed in your collective consciousness. And I wished to observe what the reverberation from your collective consciousness would be before taking the matter further. So there is another side to the story, to what is going on with the coronavirus in your planetary consciousness. Perhaps a darker side to the story. One of the reverberations that came back from your collective consciousness was a kind of a angry, disbelieving response. Now, please, this is not from everybody, but there is a contingent who would respond in this way to say, but Adamu, surely you can't be serious. This virus is terrible. It's serious. Are you saying it's a hoax? Are you saying it's a scam? Are you saying we shouldn't take it seriously? There is that contingent who cannot bear to see somebody taking a lighter perspective on this. So allow me to start by saying, no, this is not a hoax, it's not a scam, and yes, it is serious. It's serious because many people will die. Many people will die directly from this virus. Many people will die indirectly from various other complications, and in fact, depending on how your planetary consciousness deals with this, potentially far more will die from the indirect consequences. And when I talk about indirect consequences, what am I talking about? Social upheaval. When people are fearful, human beings, when they fear for their lives, when they fear for their well-being, when they feel their loved ones, their family members, those who they support are at risk, many human beings respond in violent ways. Riots happen when people get hungry, when people get scared. They riot, they loot, they burn, they destroy. Social upheaval is a very real possibility as a consequence of this virus. Economic implosion is a kind of a certainty. To one degree or another, your planet is going to be vastly negatively affected economically. It's already happening right in this early stage. It's already happening. Companies are closing. People are losing their jobs. The knock-on effects of this are going to be felt on your planet for a very long time. When people lose employment, they don't just no longer have a job to go to. They don't just lose a salary. They lose all kinds of other things, social networks and a sense of purpose in the world. And when people lose this, that when they lose a direction, when they lose their income, when they lose their purpose, they lose their value, when they notice economic implosion going around them, social upheaval is multiplied, and social upheaval leads to further economic impacts. If the one thing that is working in your small town is perhaps a store that sells groceries and people go and loot the store and burn the store, well then that's not working anymore. And so it goes. So this is serious. I'm not inviting you to become irresponsible about this. In fact, quite the opposite. I'm inviting you to become self-responsible and to take your self-responsibility to the next level and become unity conscious, aware, to awaken. So it needed to be said that this is just a virus, because the problem is not really the virus. The problem is the virus of the mind that I addressed in that last video. The fear, the panic, the desperation. That is really the problem. Now, one might say that there is a silver lining to every dark cloud. And the silver lining is, well, there are a number of silver linings. Two silver linings that I can share with you right away is that globalism is really coming to an end. Globalism as a concept is being destroyed by the coronavirus. Now, globalism per se is not a bad thing. It's really not a bad thing for the humans of planet Earth to stop seeing themselves as separated by things like nationhood, the country you belong to, ethnicity, religion, color of your skin, culture, socioeconomic circumstances. It's really a good idea for humans to see themselves as one humanity belonging to one planet. So from that perspective, globalism is a beautiful thing, a beautiful ideal, one world, one humanity. But globalism, as it has been implemented on planet Earth and as it continues to be pushed for, is driven as a political front end of these ones, the dark cabal, the Illuminati, whatever you're calling them, the bloodline families that run the show behind the scenes, have been powerfully pushing for globalism because it is the absolute linchpin in their plans for world domination. You cannot dominate a planet that's fragmented in this way, where you have to persuade local governments to do things. The European Union was a very interesting exercise in globalism. Convince the people of an area that it is in their best interests for them to open the markets to each other. One common market. You might recall, if you're not a child, you might recall that this started really just as a European common market. And then you slowly expand from just being a common market to more and more commonality. And that there are laws being made not by elected officials, but by bureaucrats. This was, to some extent, is still happening in the European Union. Thanks to Brexit and various other things, the European Union plan is falling apart. And that was to be a model which was to be rolled out. More and more unions, and then unify all the unions, and you have one world with officials that are not elected, but are bureaucrats that are placed there, that can be influenced, controlled by the dark cabal. Well, with the coronavirus, it becomes immediately apparent that it's not a good idea to have, for example, all of America's manufacturing in China. Not a good idea. Surgical masks. If you import all of your surgical masks from China, all of your N95 masks, the masks that are supposed to be protective in exactly this case. Well, if you import all of your masks from China and there is a coronavirus and you need masks and China stops exporting its masks, you're in trouble. Well, one can extend that same idea to everything. It's really not a good idea to have such substantial power in the hands of a foreign nation if you're trying to look after your own people, trying to look after your own nation. So for an unrelated reason, globalism is dying, and that's a good idea. In the long run, that is a very good idea. There is another very important silver lining, which is a little sensitive, a little bit difficult for me to discuss. But those of you who are in the know, those of you who have been reading alternative media, watching what's going on behind the scenes, will not be shocked or surprised to hear that the members of the Dark Cabal and their chosen few, their lackeys, who end up being some of the richest, most powerful, most politically connected, most influential human beings on planet Earth. This group, this club, engages in some very dark activities. They engage in things like ritual practices, ritual sacrifices, sexual perversions, very often on the youngest and most innocent. Groups of children and toddlers and babies being used in the most perverse way, causing them the most horrendous emotional distress. And at the end of all this, these young ones, these innocent ones, are then ritually sacrificed and their blood is taken. And there is a drinking of the blood and an extract of the blood, a particular extract that is known as Adrenochrome, which is then used. It's consumed as a youth elixir. When you live this kind of a dark life, you are dark within. Your connection to the divine is severed. And so as a result, the body struggles, the body withers. The drinking of adrenochrome counters this effect. It has a vivifying effect. You feel younger, you look younger, you probably extend your longevity somewhat. You have less wrinkles and more energy, and it gives a kind of a high, sort of drug-like high. So this has been going on for a very, very long time. Over time, the club, the dark club that participates in this, has been expanded as the Illuminati have been expanding their grasp of the planet. They have needed more and more puppets, more and more members of their club. So more and more of this has been occurring. This darkness. So where is the silver lining I've been talking about? Well, the silver lining is that the use of adrenochrome makes the user over time far more susceptible to certain things. And one of the things that you are more susceptible to is the coronavirus. So you are far more likely to get it, and far more likely to get ill, far more likely to die if you are an Adrenochrome user. That sounds like a silver lining to me. The silver lining extends substantially when you understand that one of the vagaries of the coronavirus is that children are more likely to be asymptomatic. You know, when one has a pandemic of any kind, it's usually the young and the old who are most susceptible. The young and the old who are going to get ill first and die first. Well, this coronavirus is a little different. It is most likely to get to those who have so-called comorbidities. This is something to watch out for, comorbidities. People who are already quite substantially ill with heart disease, with immunocompromising diseases, people who are already suffering with tuberculosis or malnutrition, people who are otherwise weak and ill, are most likely to be in that 15 to 20% that require medical assistance, perhaps hospitalization, perhaps ventilation, perhaps intensive care. So what's different is that the children are most likely, if they get it, to be asymptomatic. They are most likely to be in the 80% that don't need any medical intervention. Indeed, they are most likely to be a part of that contingent which isn't measured, there aren't numbers about it, because nobody even knows. You're completely asymptomatic. You never appear on the radar. Nobody even knows that you had it. That's where children are most likely to be. Now, bear in mind, the children are the prey, are the sacrificed ones in these dark rituals. And the children might be asymptomatic carriers. So suddenly your source of prey becomes scary and dries up. And you know you are more likely to get it. Well, if they don't know it, they're going to soon discover that their numbers are being decimated by the coronavirus, and it's being decimated because of their dark rituals. That sounds like a silver lining to me. So my friends, please, it's not that this isn't serious. It's very serious. If you see what somebody looks like when they are on a ventilator, fighting for their lives, struggling to breathe with a deathly pallor on their face, it's not pretty. When your nation is struck by the coronavirus and that 15 to 20% that needs hospitalization is not able to get hospitalization because your hospitals are completely overloaded and people are perhaps dying on the streets, it's not pretty. But so important that you hear me when I say that you need to take care of you. You need to be self-responsible. Look after your body and look after your emotional state. That's why the previous video was so important. That there is a light side, not just a dark side. And the light side is when you enlighten, when you bring your light into your being and radiate your light, then not only do you keep yourself well, but you transmit a field of consciousness, of healthy consciousness, positivity, which will have a profoundly chilling effect on all of these terrible things that I've been talking about in this video. It will limit social upheaval around you. Believe it or not, this is how it works. You can transmit peace, tranquility, joy. This is the time of miracles and magic. If you awaken and you do so and you bring your consciousness to bear, miracles and magic will happen. People will generally remain more peaceful, more calm, more tranquil, more resilient, more stoic, more willing to let this thing do what it's going to do and move through your collective humanity so that you can come out the other end and that we can move to the next stage of the event. Remember, this coronavirus is the trigger. It begins the ball rolling. Which timeline are you going to be on? It's not up to other people. It's not up to your neighbors. It's not up to the people down the road. It's up to you. You will determine your timeline with your consciousness and what you choose. Choose well. Don't choose for fear, panic, desperation. Choose for love, for oneness, for the awareness that you are a divine being and everyone around you is too. Your planet is divine. The animals, the life on this planet is sacred, it's holy. So, on balance, both of these messages do need to go out. So I share them both with you. Make your choices wisely. You are divine beings. I am Adamu of the monadic entity of the Pleiadian civilization, and I have been coming to you as always through my dear friend and scribe Zingdad. I love you all with a heart of oneness. I will talk to you again in due course. Goodbye.